On the morning of December 26, 1996, a mother walked down a staircase inside a large Tudor-style home in Boulder, Colorado. She was headed to the kitchen to make coffee. The family had plans to fly to their vacation home in Michigan that morning. It was the day after Christmas. But on one of the steps, she found something that would change everything. A 2.5-page handwritten ransom note. It said her 6-year-old daughter had been taken. It demanded exactly $118,000 for her safe return. At 5:52 a.m., Patsy Ramsey called 911. She was frantic. She told the dispatcher that her daughter was gone, that there was a note, that someone had taken JonBenet. Police arrived within minutes. They searched the house, but they did not search every room. They did not seal the home as a crime scene, and they did not find the little girl. 7 hours later, JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, went down to the basement. He opened a door to a small wine cellar room, and there on the floor, wrapped in a white blanket, was his daughter. She had been struck in the head with devastating force. She had been strangled with a garrote fashioned from a paintbrush handle and a length of cord. She had been sexually assaulted. JonBenet Patricia Ramsey was 6 years old. She was found dead inside her own home, less than 15 feet below where her family had been waiting all morning. That was nearly 30 years ago. No one has ever been charged. No one has ever been arrested. And the question that has haunted America for 3 decades remains unanswered. Who killed JonBenet Ramsey? To understand what happened that night, you have to understand the family. JonBenet Ramsey was a former Navy officer and a successful businessman. He was the president of Access Graphics, a computer distribution company that was a subsidiary of Lockheed Martin. The company brought in over $1 billion in annual revenue. John was wealthy. He was prominent in the Boulder community. He was respected. His wife Patricia was known to everyone as Patsy. She was a former beauty queen, Miss West Virginia 1977. She was vivacious and driven and deeply involved in her community. In 1993, Patsy had been diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer at age 36. She fought the disease hard and went into remission. That battle shaped her. She threw herself into life with a renewed intensity. Their daughter JonBenet was born on August 6, 1990, in Atlanta, Georgia. She was bright and energetic and loved to perform. Patsy entered her into the child beauty pageant circuit. JonBenet won multiple titles: Little Miss Colorado, Colorado State All-Star Kids Cover Girl, National Tiny Miss Beauty. She loved the stage. She loved the costumes. She loved the attention. Their son Burke was 9 years old. He was a quiet boy who largely stayed out of the spotlight. The Ramseys lived in a 15-room Tudor-style home in the University Hill neighborhood of Boulder. It had 3 floors plus a basement. It was a big house, an impressive house, the kind of house that announced success. But it was also a complicated house, full of rooms and corridors and staircases. A house where someone could hide. A house where something could happen in the basement and no one upstairs would hear a thing. Christmas Day 1996 began like any other Christmas for a wealthy Boulder family. The Ramseys opened presents that morning. JonBenet and Burke played with their new gifts. In the late afternoon, around 4:30 p.m., the family drove to the home of their friends Fleet and Priscilla White for a Christmas dinner party. The children played. Neighbors came for caroling. It was festive and warm and ordinary. Around 8:30 p.m., the Ramseys left the White residence. They made 2 quick stops to drop off gifts at the homes of friends. They arrived home between 9 o'clock and 9:15 p.m. JonBenet had fallen asleep in the car. John carried her upstairs to her bedroom on the 2nd floor. Patsy helped change her into pajamas. By 10 p.m., John and Patsy said they were in bed. John read for a while before falling asleep. Patsy set an alarm for early the next morning. The family was scheduled to fly to their vacation home in Charlevoix, Michigan. That was the last time anyone claims to have seen JonBenet alive. But something happened in that house between the hours of 10 p.m. on Christmas night and 5:30 a.m. the following morning. At some point, JonBenet ate pineapple. Investigators know this because undigested pineapple was found in her stomach during the autopsy. A bowl of fresh pineapple with milk was sitting on the dining room table. Burke's fingerprints were on the bowl. Patsy's fingerprints were on the glass beside it. Both parents said they did not remember serving pineapple to JonBenet. Both parents said they did not know how the bowl got there. At some point during those dark hours, JonBenet was struck on the head with extreme force. The blow caused an 8.5-inch linear skull fracture. It was a devastating injury. She was then strangled with a garrote, a device made from a length of white nylon cord tied to the broken handle of one of Patsy's paintbrushes. Duct tape was placed over her mouth. Her wrists were loosely bound. She was sexually assaulted. Her body was left in a small, windowless room in the basement that the family used as a wine cellar. And then someone sat down with Patsy's legal pad and a felt tip pen from the Ramsey home and wrote a 2.5-page ransom note. The investigation into JonBenet's death was compromised from the very first hour. When Patsy called 911 at 5:52 a.m., the Boulder Police Department treated the situation as a kidnapping, not a homicide. Officer Rick French was first on the scene. He conducted a quick search of the house, but did not open the door to the basement wine cellar. It was latched shut with a wooden peg. He walked right past it. Only JonBenet's bedroom was cordoned off. The rest of the 15-room house was left wide open. And then the friends arrived. Fleet White, John Fernie, their families, a minister, a victim's advocate. They wandered freely through the house. They sat on furniture. They used bathrooms. Someone cleaned surfaces in the kitchen. Potential evidence was being destroyed in real time. Detective Linda Arnn arrived around 8 a.m. She was the only detective assigned to the scene. She requested backup multiple times. Backup never came. The ransom note had stated that the kidnappers would call between 8 o'clock and 10 a.m. 10 o'clock came and went. No call. At some point that morning, Fleet White went to the basement on his own. He opened the wine cellar door, but the room was dark and he did not turn on the light. He saw nothing. He closed the door and went back upstairs. Around 1 p.m., Detective Arnn asked John Ramsey and Fleet White to search the house from top to bottom, to look for anything out of place. John went straight to the basement. He went directly to the wine cellar door. He opened it. He turned on the light, and he found his daughter. He screamed. He tore the duct tape from her mouth. He picked up her body and carried it upstairs to the first floor. The crime scene was now catastrophically contaminated. The body had been moved. The tape had been removed. People had been walking through the house for 7 hours. Critical evidence may have been lost forever. Detective Arnn later described that moment as one of the most frightening of her career. She looked around the room and realized she was the only law enforcement officer present. She was surrounded by civilians, and the child she had been waiting to rescue was already dead in the basement. Boulder, Colorado was a quiet college town. It averaged about 1 homicide per year. The police department had virtually no experience handling a case of this magnitude, and it showed. From the very first moments, the investigation was marked by errors that could never be undone. Despite the botched crime scene, the investigation did produce evidence. A great deal of it. The problem was that the evidence pointed in multiple directions at once. Start with the ransom note. It was extraordinary. At 2.5 pages, it was one of the longest ransom notes in criminal history. Real kidnapping notes are typically short, a few sentences at most. This was practically an essay. It was written on a legal pad that belonged to Patsy Ramsey, with a felt tip pen that was also found in the home. Police even found what appeared to be a practice draft on the same pad. The note claimed to be from a small foreign faction. It was signed with the initials SBTC. No one has ever determined what those initials stand for. The note demanded exactly $118,000. That was a strange amount. The Ramseys were worth millions. Why ask for such a relatively small sum? The answer may be that $118,000 was the exact amount of a bonus John Ramsey had recently received from Access Graphics. That figure was not public knowledge. Whoever wrote the note knew intimate details about the family's finances. Linguistic experts analyzed the note extensively. Some identified patterns consistent with Patsy's writing style. The note used sophisticated vocabulary mixed with seemingly deliberate misspellings. It contained references to movies like Speed and Dirty Harry. Handwriting analysis was inconclusive. Multiple experts examined it. Most could not definitively rule Patsy in or out. John was largely excluded as the author. Then there was the physical evidence. The garrote was made from a paintbrush that belonged to Patsy's art supply kit. But the duct tape that covered JonBenet's mouth had no matching roll anywhere in the Ramsey home. The white nylon cord used in the garrote and bindings also had no match in the house. If a family member committed this crime, they somehow disposed of the remaining tape and cord. If an intruder committed it, they brought those materials and took the unused portions with them. Fibers from Patsy's red and black jacket were reportedly found on the duct tape, on the blanket covering the body, and intertwined in the knot of the garrote cord. Patsy had been wearing that jacket on Christmas night. Her attorneys argued the fibers could have transferred innocently since Patsy lived in the home. And then there was the DNA. An unknown male DNA profile designated Unknown Male 1 was found mixed with JonBenet's blood in her underwear. DNA consistent with the same profile was found under her fingernails. In 2008, advanced touch DNA testing found the same profile on the waistband of her long johns. This DNA did not match any member of the Ramsey family. It did not match anyone in the FBI's national database. It has never been identified, but the DNA evidence is deeply contested. The samples were extremely small. The lab that conducted the testing noted the long john samples contained genetic material from more than 2 people. Some DNA experts have questioned whether Unknown Male 1 is a real person at all, or whether it could be a composite artifact from multiple sources of incidental transfer, like factory workers who handled the clothing during manufacturing. For primary theories have dominated this case for nearly 30 years. Each has passionate advocates. Each has significant holes. The first theory points to Patsy Ramsey. Detective Steve Thomas was the lead investigator who championed this theory. He believed an altercation between Patsy and JonBenet led to Patsy striking her daughter, perhaps in frustration over bedwetting. JonBenet had a known bedwetting problem. Thomas theorized that Patsy believed the blow had killed JonBenet and then staged the entire scene. The ransom note, the garrote, the duct tape, all of it fabricated to make it look like a kidnapping gone wrong. Thomas was so convinced of this that he resigned from the Boulder Police Department in 1998. He wrote a public letter accusing the district attorney of refusing to pursue charges. He later wrote a book laying out his case. The evidence supporting this theory is substantial. The ransom note was written on Patsy's materials. Linguistic analysis pointed to her. Her fibers were found on critical pieces of evidence. She was still wearing the same clothes from the Christmas party when police arrived at 6 a.m., suggesting she may never have gone to bed. But the theory has weaknesses. The unknown male DNA, the missing duct tape roll and cord, the sophistication of the garrote, and no history whatsoever of violence against her children. The second theory points to John Ramsey. He went directly to the wine cellar when asked to search the house. He immediately moved the body. Evidence of sexual assault could implicate him, but handwriting experts largely excluded him as the note's author, and the DNA does not match him. The third theory was advanced by a 2016 CBS documentary and former detective James Kohler. It points to Burke. The theory suggests that 9-year-old Burke struck JonBenet during a dispute, perhaps over the pineapple. The blow was impulsive. When the parents discovered what had happened, they staged the entire scene to protect their son. Under Colorado law, a 9-year-old could not be charged with a crime. The parents had every motivation to cover it up. Burke's fingerprints were on the pineapple bowl. The enhanced 911 audio may indicate he was awake when the parents claimed he was sleeping. A previous incident involving Burke hitting JonBenet with a golf club was noted. Burke has always denied involvement. He sued CBS for $750 million over the documentary and settled for undisclosed terms. The fourth theory is the intruder theory. It was championed by Detective Lou Smith, a legendary homicide investigator brought out of retirement to work the case. Smith believed an unknown person entered the Ramsey home through a broken basement window, hid inside while the family was at the Christmas party, wrote the ransom note using materials found in the house, and then attacked JonBenet in the middle of the night. The unknown male DNA supports this theory. The missing duct tape and cord support it. An unidentified boot print from a high-tech brand shoe was found in the basement. No Ramsey family member owned high-tech shoes. But critics point out that an intruder would need intimate knowledge of the home. The basement window had an undisturbed cobweb on its grate, and no intruder in history has ever sat down inside a victim's home and written a 2.5-page ransom note. Lou Smith investigated the case until his death from colon cancer in 2010. He never wavered in his belief that an intruder was responsible. His family continues his advocacy to this day. In September 1998, a grand jury was convened to examine the evidence. For 13 months, jurors heard testimony and reviewed the case file. In October 1999, the grand jury voted to indict both John and Patsy Ramsey, but not for murder. The charges were child abuse resulting in death and accessory to a crime. The specific language was revealing. The indictment said the Ramseys did unlawfully and recklessly permit a child to be unreasonably placed in a situation that posed a threat of injury to the child's life or health, which resulted in the death of JonBenet Ramsey. The accessory charge alleged they helped someone who had committed first-degree murder. Read that language carefully. It does not say the parents killed their daughter. It says they allowed her to be placed in a dangerous situation and then helped cover up what happened. Many analysts have interpreted this as the grand jury believing the parents knew who killed JonBenet and protected that person. But Boulder County District Attorney Alex Hunter refused to sign the indictment. Under Colorado law, a grand jury indictment requires the prosecutor's signature to become a formal charge. On October 13, 1999, Hunter announced that no charges would be filed. He said he did not believe he could prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. He said his team was collectively confident that the evidence was insufficient. The decision was explosive. Detective Steve Thomas had already resigned in protest. The public was outraged. But the case was closed without charges, and the grand jury's decision was sealed, kept secret. For 14 years, no one outside the investigation knew the jury had voted to indict. In 2013, the Boulder Daily Camera newspaper successfully petitioned to unseal the documents. A judge ordered the 4 pages of the indictment to be released. When the public learned that a grand jury had wanted to charge the Ramseys and the district attorney had overridden them, it reignited fury across the country. But by then it was too late. The statute of limitations on those charges had expired in 2002, and Patsy Ramsey was dead. She had lost her battle with ovarian cancer on June 24, 2006, at age 49. She was buried in Marietta, Georgia, next to JonBenet. She died without ever being charged, and while still under the cloud of suspicion that had followed her for a decade. The years after the case went cold were marked by false leads and continued controversy. In 2006, a man named John Mark Carr was arrested in Bangkok, Thailand, after confessing to JonBenet's murder during email exchanges with a university professor. He claimed he had drugged and accidentally killed her. His confession fell apart almost immediately. His DNA did not match. The autopsy showed no drugs in JonBenet's system. He could not provide a single detail that was not already public. Charges were dropped. He was a disturbed individual seeking attention. Nothing more. In 2008, Boulder District Attorney Mary Lacey, sent a letter to John Ramsey formally exonerating the family based on the new touch DNA evidence. She apologized for the public perception of their involvement. This decision was immediately and widely criticized. The DNA lab never used the word match. The samples contained genetic material from multiple people. Lacey's successor called the exoneration misleading. It had no legal force. It was a letter, not a court ruling. But the case refused to die. It has been the subject of at least 8 major documentaries, dozens of books, thousands of news articles. It became one of the most analyzed and debated criminal cases in American history. And in recent years, something changed. In 2022, Boulder Police Chief Stephen Redfern assembled a dedicated 5-person cold case task unit. The team redigitized over 1,400 photographs. They re-indexed 3,700 pages of hard copy reports. They located 119 evidence items that had either never been submitted to a lab or were only tested with techniques available before the year 2000. In November 2024, Netflix released a documentary series called Cold Case: Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey? It generated over 100 new tips to investigators. In late 2025, Boulder Police announced they had conducted several new interviews and were testing dozens of items at the Colorado Bureau of Investigation using advanced DNA techniques. Results were expected by March 2026. John Ramsey is now in his early 80s. He has expressed cautious optimism about the new DNA testing and the new leadership at Boulder Police. He has called it encouraging. Nearly 30 years have passed since that morning after Christmas. The little girl who loved the stage, who wore the crowns and the costumes and smiled under the bright lights. She never got to grow up. She never got to find out who she would become beyond those pageant stages. And the question still hangs in the cold Colorado air. Unanswered, unresolved. Who killed JonBenet Ramsey? This case remains one of the most complex and controversial unsolved murders in American history. If you have any information about the death of JonBenet Ramsey, you can contact the Boulder Police Department. Their tip line is always open. If this video moved you or made you think, please consider subscribing to this channel. We cover cases like this one every week. Thoroughly researched, respectfully told. Because every victim deserves to have their story told with care. And every unsolved case deserves people who refuse to forget. Thank you for watching.